something that's special is that my parents are here, and they're going to come up and answer a few questions. We're going to open the floor to a few questions before we end tonight. It's the first time we've all spoken together. I love them so. Like I said, we're regular people, but they're my heroes. Just the fact that they took my phone call after the collect call from jail, they always answered that one. That was nice. Thank you, guys. I always needed a ride. They are the most faithful, God-fearing, wonderful parents, and their love for each other is what gave me life. Because they said yes in complete uncertainty.
So you want to know what the conversation was like when we found out? Well, oh boy. MJ said that the violence had to stop somewhere. She said she could go away.
If I offered that now, he'd probably say
We'd been married a year. I love my wife.
Yeah.
A year and a half, thereabouts. Yeah. So it was pretty simple, really. It was, she made the choice. And, it's a good one.
I was a child of the 60s, and I was hip. And I was pretty sure abortion was okay because I discovered that in college. And then somehow God led me into a charismatic prayer group, started reading the Bible long before I think even I met Jim. So when this happened, I was stunned, but it never crossed my mind. I'm not a hero. I thought, nope, it wasn't even a thought. We're going to go through with this one way or the other and see what happens. And fortunately, we did, and we got a baby out of it, and we both wanted to keep her. By the time that Anne was born, we were both gung-ho. Jim ran down and we had no money. We were both out of divorces, so we were broke. And he ran down and got a little used rocking chair and brought it home.
Thanks, Dad. I'm starting at this one. Someone just asked me on a podcast, like, do you believe in capital punishment for the rapist? And I was like, I'd be happy if that was still in jail. He's out. Yes, they caught him. I'll let you guys talk about that. But he was a serial rapist. He had many priors. And it was only a couple of months ago that I hired a private investigator. So I thought, I want to know where he's incarcerated. And he's a registered sex offender in Washington. And I thought, what a disservice to the community that guy is still out. But I'll let them tell you the circumstance. You should probably tell them the circumstance of, yeah.
Sure.
He was a serial rapist. He had been incarcerated for I don't know how many rapes. And then Washington opened up what they called a work release program, right?
Yes.
Work release. So he was driving around.
But it was a therapy program for rapists at the mental health center.
So he was locked up at night. There were probably about 12 or 14 men in this thing. And he was driving around in the day, and I just happened to be bringing groceries in, and he saw me. I didn't see him, and I wasn't paying too much attention, obviously. But I was the last. I was the 14th and the last of the second series, and the police knew right where to go. And in fact, our detective advised us to bring suit against the state of Washington, and we did, with the idea they need to close that program down. And we never did actually get into a jury trial. They settled pretty quickly, and the program closed down immediately. She asked if I knew the sexual offender. No. Still no. An interesting thing about it, at least in my mind, is I gave a vivid description to the police because he didn't wear anything. And then we went to see him arraigned, and I had no idea who it was. I was like, I could walk right into him the day after and probably not have known who he was. I was so stunned. And
We never showed his face.
well, he wasn't wearing anything. I saw him a little bit coming in the house. It's just you don't want to put people in jail based on a witness account, I think. And Jim didn't know him either.
No, I did not. I did not.
Yeah, we don't.
But the conversation I think that you asked about that helped all of us when things finally came around to a resolution was Anne finally reached the point after her second DUI. She said, got to fix this. God brought her to the table. Simple as that.
And also that second DUI, she started taking AA very seriously. And that was a wonderful program for the whole household. I think we learned a lot and she learned a lot.
MJ and I had been ready to pull the trigger for quite a while to get out of Tacoma, Washington. But we weren't going to pull the trigger until the kids made the decision about where they wanted to go, because we didn't want to move more than once. So they finally pulled the trigger and said that we're going to go to Coeur d'Alene. I understand that Anne really went after you. Yep. So we started making arrangements to move, and there were no roadblocks. None. Zero zip.
Yeah, Adam, my husband back there, he wanted us to move out of Washington probably starting, 10 years ago. And then after COVID, he really wanted to move. And I was like, well, let's just drive. We were talking about Florida and Tennessee and all these things. And I'm like, let's just drive to Idaho and take a vacation, because at least we can just drive there and see it. And literally, I was pregnant with our daughter, and we drove over the border, the state line. And I looked at Adam. We hadn't even gotten to our vacation yet. And I was like, I'll move here. And he was like, what? But you just know. And it's been the best thing that's ever happened to us. Like, it has blessed our whole lives have changed with that move. I think Adam would agree.
I heard the conversation. She was on the phone, and she didn't know it. So I knew right away. We hadn't talked about that much. So I knew from the get-go that she had done it, that it had been done.
Did you tell Mom?
I don't think so.
No.
I
remember how you.
Okay.
I think it was my car got impounded, and
It was a world of secrets. Yeah.
the police brought my backpack to my parents' house, and inside the backpack was like the paperwork. Because I remember my mom said, it wasn't the paperwork recently. I think I was at a doctor's appointment in my 20s, and it says have you ever had, and I'm an idiot. I'm like, yeah, that's what I did. And then I tell my parents, or that sheet told my parents, and I remember my mom was yelling at me on the phone.
Was I yelling? I suppose.
Maybe it was just a raised voice, a concerned voice. It was valid. And I went to confession, and I was terrified to go to confession because I thought it was the sin that damns you forever. And the priest, when I said I had an abortion, he said, thank God that you're here and that you can tell me. It was really not what I was expecting. And I'm actually going to go, it's been something for me that's been really hard to go there. So I'm going to go to a retreat next month, the Rachel Vineyard retreat. And I'm sure this is going to be, part of our process. I owe them a big apology. It's coming. I ripped your grandchild away. You don't think about those things. So we're kind of having the conversation now, and it'll continue.
Yeah, I found out when we got that car, and I didn't know the timeline, but I was just so sad. And I remember I went and talked to her counselor, and I told her, and she says, "Your daughter must feel like she's nuts."
Yep.
And that was kind of in the throes of college, and I remember I went over to Ann and I says, I love you regardless, and I do think you probably feel like you're nuts, and you're not. So it was kind of part of that. Somebody asked how the conversation went. Came in bits and pieces a lot.
One of the things that I wish I had done is look for advice on how to tell Ann.
Mm-hmm.
We never really did prepare for that very well. And I've always thought that maybe we could have, prevented some of the anguish. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. God has his way. He certainly came through ultimately in his own time.
I don't know everybody who's been raped and got pregnant, but all the women I have met, we all feel guilty about getting raped. And the worst thing you can say is, "Oh, well, that would never happen to me because I never do go out in my car at night, or I never go to the grocery store during."
Lock your door.
Yeah, and I always lock my door. So if you can, when you hear a tragic story, and I kind of decided that women in my family, I think they want to protect some old selves. This couldn't happen to me. This couldn't happen to me. And they kind of want to, self-soothe. But that's not a story that a victim wants to hear, or a survivor. And once we got going, we had all sorts of support. Once we made up our minds, we were good with our choice. And our circle of friends just circled around us. We started getting baby things, delivered, and lots of support. So I think maybe what Ann has mentioned, and what I would say, is just listen. If somebody's got a story, be all ears. It's just so helpful to have someone listen to the story and just be empathetic with it, and
Actually invite the story.
yeah.
Ask the question.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a hard thing to know. It's so unusual.
Well, and you think, people, they don't want to talk about that. I'll never mention it.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to a family reunion and everybody just avoided me. I was pregnant. And out of the blue, my cousin's wife says, "I want you to know how hard or how sorry we are for what happened to you, and that we've been praying for you." And that was just so helpful that she just broke the ice like that and said something. So she asked why we started talking and why I started talking. I've been following Lila Rose. If you haven't followed her, she's in live action. And somehow about a year ago, she started having panels, face-to-face videos. And there'd be 3 abortionists on one end and 3 women who had had abortions on the other end of the table. And they would just talk to each other. They were all pro-life at this point, but they were asking questions, and I was just fascinated. So I really, and I was a contributor, so I'd get emails from her. And she sent out a email, if you have a story that might fit one of these, and one was if you were raped and had a conception from the rape, we'd like to hear your story. So I thought, nobody's ever asked for it for a long, long time anyway. And then I sent it off to Ann because I didn't know how to download the YouTube, and she wrote right back. She says, "I'm going to send mine in too." So that was a really neat vehicle that came along for us at the right time, I think.